Statehouse. Let's move on to our third and final topic. The smoking ban passed by the state isn't getting rave reviews by everyone. Some say the state is going too far, superseding local law in the matter. Others say it will hurt businesses, and now a group is banding together to fight this new law. Bob, you had an article about this group. I take it it's primarily business owners that are unhappy with this, and I think there's a couple of points here. One, and I think this is something that you would probably stress, correct me if I'm wrong, just more government intrusion in private lives, but the other part is businesses say this is going to hurt them financially.
Yes, I attended a meeting yesterday afternoon and of these business owners, and they are very concerned, gravely concerned, Tim, that the effect of the smoking ban will be very harmful to them and even put some of them out of business. So that's really the impetus behind this meeting and what the people are worried about. Philip Bradley, who's with the Kansas Licensed Beverage Association, he mentioned 3 ways that there could be possibly action on the smoking bill. One is to emphasize about the casinos. As you know, the state exempted the state-owned casinos from the smoking ban. Brenda Landwehr, representative from Wichita, was at the meeting too, and she said, well, if proponents of a smoking ban say it doesn't hurt business, then say, well, why did the state exempt its own businesses that it owns? And so that, I think, is a very compelling reason. There's also what's called the 10-foot rule. In the legislation, it prevents smoking within 10 feet of an entrance or a window or even an air conditioning intake to a business that's covered by the smoking ban. So this is a problem, and this might be of interest to those advocating for, downtown renewal, that when you have things in close proximity to each other, this 10-foot rule can be a problem. People even walking by the door of your business smoking a cigarette, well, that's within 10 feet. And also the outdoor patios and things like that can be a problem with this 10-foot rule as well. Then there's also another issue about treating similar classes of businesses equally under the law. In the law, if you have a private club that was formed before January 1st of 2009, you can be exempted from the smoking ban. But a private club formed after that date would be subject to the smoking ban. That seems like a very arbitrary distinction that bothers many people.
You know, Stephen, when this law was passed, a lot of folks weren't real happy with it. In fact, the people who pushed for the smoking ban weren't real happy with this one because they didn't think it went quite far enough. It seems like not a lot of people were pleased with how this thing turned out.
Well, it's interesting you should say that, because the day that it actually passed the House, I was, of course, covering the legislature, and I was up in the gallery with a lot of the supporters, and this is in some respects a pretty strong smoking ban. It bans in restaurants and bars and most public places, and so there are people who definitely are for it. The thing over the costs, their argument would be, how could it hurt, business in some of our local businesses, because there aren't many places you'd be able to go that wouldn't have the smoking ban. And their argument would also be, some studies have shown that business does not go down. But an interesting thing about this is how it actually passed, the sort of mechanics. This had passed the Senate multiple times, but just could not get traction in a House committee. And what happened was House members brought it to the floor through a procedural motion and then got votes on the floor to concur with the Senate version. That's unusual to pass a bill that way, and we could see other bills, possibly budget bills, maybe passing that same way.
Stephen, I do want to point out this bill, this law, it had some exceptions for specific businesses. I think cigar shops, if I'm not mistaken.
Something like that, yes. There were businesses, and as Bob mentioned, the casino was a big one.
Well, that's the one that sticks out within everybody's mind, I think.
Brenda Landwehr, as Bob mentioned, argued the same argument on the House floor, that if this isn't going to hurt businesses, why would we exempt our own state casinos? But there were the votes to support it on the floor once it got out, once it sort of bypassed the committee process. So it had support among lawmakers. And
I think another thing that was exempted, we had seen some articles, particularly in this part of the state. There's a Catholic priest down here that does a fundraiser every year. I think he was exempted, or fundraisers were exempted, if I'm not mistaken.
That might possibly be. There's certain conditions that hotels might be exempted, and some care homes under certain conditions and things like that. But it is pretty strong smoking ban. It's stronger than the smoking ban Wichita passed a couple years ago. And many businesses down here did spend quite a bit of money to build the separate rooms with separate ventilation systems that the Wichita law required if you wanted to have smoking in your establishment. Now that investment is largely lost because smoking will not be allowed in those places at all.
Well, that is an interesting point. Probably the rest of the state doesn't realize that, but with the Wichita smoking ban, as Bob said, they allowed for the creation of smoking rooms in specific bars and businesses like that, the smoke would be taken away from the rest of the business, and everybody You know, that was kind of the caveat down here for the ban, and now those are being taken away. Bob, you know, we've heard the argument that businesses are hurt, but then we also see in towns when smoking bans are enacted that maybe not hurt quite as bad as they thought they would. How would this not carry over to the state?
Well, you know, I'm not really know if those studies are valid, and I haven't really followed them that much, Tim, because to me it is a fundamental issue that smoking is a legal activity, and that really, there should be places, even in public, where you can go and do that type of activity. I think, you know, one thing that the smoking ban advocates say is, you know, we regulate, let's say, restaurants for their sanitary and food handling conditions in the restaurant. And the distinction I think we need to make is that you can't tell just by walking into a restaurant whether the refrigerator is at the proper temperature for storing tuna salad or whatever, but you can immediately tell if people are smoking in an establishment. So it's not like it can be crept up on you. You know when you're in a smoky place, and that's, I think, a big distinction between this type of regulation and other regulations.
We've got less than a minute left. What is the plan of this organization? How will they battle this smoking ban?
They were encouraged to lobby their legislators, you know, using the regular methods, telephone calls, emails, letters, and so forth. They asked their customers, and one interesting thing they pointed out is a lot of these bars and taverns sponsor the Little League team and things like that. And if these businesses are going to suffer in revenue, they may not be able to do those types of charitable activities as much.
So they'll call up their lawmakers and pull on the heartstrings with the Little
There may be
Leaguers.
some avenues for lawsuits, but you know, those are expensive and take a lot of time. So hopefully legislative action is the hope of these people.
Great. Guys, we are out of time. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Bob. We appreciate you being on the show. That's
thank
all the
you.
time we have for the program. If you have any questions or comments about the show, please email me at kansasweek@kpts.org. If you'd like to watch this show or many others on your own schedule, you can check out the new video player on the KPTS website at kpts.org. Thanks for watching, and have a great week.